hello to the Knotty Grrlz who are joining through Discord. How are you today? I hope you're having a great evening. We have Deborah Gregory, Miss Deborah Gregory. Yes, the Cheetah-licious Deborah Gregory here with us today. And we will be talking with her a little bit about the Cheetah Girls. We just watched the Cheetah Girls as our virtual movie night series, and we watched all 3 movies. And funnily enough, it was basically the day after we finished the movies. I ran into Miss Gregory at a Juneteenth block party where she was selling her jewelry, which I have to say, you have to take a look at my Cheetah-licious jewelry. I got it from her. She has a Etsy shop where she sells her jewelry and other trinkets. They are all super Cheetah-licious. They've got cheetah patterns on them, and also some other beaded jewelry, which was very cute. So it was very, very serendipitous running into her. She is one of my personal inspirations. And since we had just been watching Cheetah Girls, I thought what better way to wrap that up than to connect with her, ask a little bit about the inspiration behind Cheetah Girls and how she got to her fabulous growl power self right now. So thank you so much for joining us. She's using the phone as her audio right now, so she'll be using that. And we will go ahead and get started with my first question for you, which, first of all, I know you've seen my cheetah pattern, and you've got your cheetah pattern as well. It is super cute. I would like to know what inspired the Cheetah Girls. Like, why cheetah? I know there's a lot of different inspirations, but why cheetah?
This has been a lifelong thing. Maybe it started, not maybe, it was during childhood. I would say my first connection with cheetah. And for me, Cheetah-licious, leopard, it's all the same. It's all the same to me. And I know that probably growing up near the Bronx Zoo, which was a refuge for me, a place I would hide out. You know, I lived in foster homes, and it's just, I'm sure that there's some connection there. And the leopards and the cheetahs. And I'm not so sure I knew the difference back then. It was all the same thing. It's like a cat-like thing. And I identified with them, and now I could see it's a very strong identification. And I'm not the only one. You know, if you look at someone famous like Josephine Baker in the 1920s in Paris, she walked on the Champs-Élysées with a cheetah pet. And I saw some old pictures of Lupe Velez. She was a big Mexican star who starred in big movies, by the way. You had very few Latin actresses back then. We're talking about, you know, that cowboy person, you know, those white famous movie stars. She would be in movies like that. And so I know that it's a thing. I think it's a cat-like thing, feline, and that we identify with that. And I remember the first fabric I bought, because, you know, I was always making things. So the fabric, and then I made a dress. Let's say I was about 12. And the dress came apart in school because I didn't have a sewing machine yet. So do you get it? It's just a lifelong thing. It wasn't some new thing I came up with. It was just more of an extension of myself. And I had been a writer for many years before I created the Cheetah Girls. You know, I was a writer for Essence and Vibe and Redbook and 17. That's what I did for a living. And I always wore the cheetah clothes, and they used to call me the leopard lady. So it was this connection. And then, more importantly, about the cheetah, the singing is very important, because this was the way I was a fantasy. You know, your generation is different from mine. During my generation, girl groups were the thing. And I mean the ultimate. Today, it seems like to me everybody wants to be a solo singer. No, back then it was about the girl group, the outfit, the community, and this thing of this. I mean, it was just the most fascinating thing. So this is the two factors that were very strong in me to then go on to create. You know, I've written a lot of articles on girl groups, everybody. And it was during the interview with Destiny's Child, remember, that's before Beyonce went on, in Houston, the idea started germinating. So it was all of that. And then you come to the final thing. And more importantly, anything you read by a writer has something to do with them. Fiction, whatever. Some of it is more true than they'd like to admit. So again, that's always in play, you know.
I do love Destiny's Child, and I'm someone who also really was into girl groups, and I really do think that the decline of girl groups has been so detrimental, because having like a group of girls, that's actually leads into my next question perfectly. Having a group of girls, and like you said, it was inspired by your life. I would love to know a little bit more about the details of like who the characters were inspired by, because also in the book, there was 5 of them, and in the movies there ended up being 4, because here, I'll let you say something about that.
Let me tell you, first of all, being a writer is not for the faint-hearted. You know, all art is forms, but writing specifically. You've got all these clowns in the kitchen, everyone trying to be a part. No, leave the cook alone, but that's not how it works. So unfortunately, you're talking about the book when it's made into TV or film. Then you're in trouble, because there they come with the changes and, you know, the calls. So listen, now there was 1 ounce of reality to the one thing. I made 2 characters who were twins, Aquanet and Anjanette. And by the way, that was Hairspray. And after an interview with Vivica Fox, who I had interviewed several times, and she told me, "Oh, you know, my middle name is Anjanette." And it just all clicked. Anjanette, Aquanet, Hairspray. You get it? But anyway, the point being, there comes the call. You know, we can't find 2 girls, 2 twins who sing. That's other words known as lazy. Okay? Because there are girls who are twins who sing. So it just made it easier. And that's true. And then you have to decide as an artist, because the reality of being an artist is compromise. That comes with the territory. And, you know, you can be naive or fantasize, but it's not true. These people have so much power over you. And this is the reality of being an artist, especially a writer. And I'm sure if you are aware and in society, you hear about the writer's strike and you've heard stories and you know what's going on. It's a tough battle. And so you decide, okay, so you don't want 2 girls, you just want 4. All right, fine. And then you decide what's the compromise, what not. Because what you're facing with also is that they could say goodbye. If you're too difficult, it's goodbye. And that's the reality of, you know, what they are. So, but the characters are all parts of myself, quite frankly, to answer your question. So here you have, now this is a cute little fact, by the way. When I created the character Galleria Garibaldi, first of all, so I make this up. Now, mind you, after the shopping trip in Houston with the Destiny's Child and the publicist, you guys who was such a darling, their publicist. Shopping at the Galleria, oh, what a heavenly experience. It's one of the most beautiful malls in the world, in Houston. And it is fashioned after the Galleria, which is a famous mall, you know, in Italy. So here you have that. So my mind works, and it's like, okay, her name is Galleria Garibaldi. That's part of Italian history, whatever. Now, if you notice, I made her half black, half Italian, because I thought it was funny. I just thought it was funny, and that you know, her father was from Bologna. When you spell Bologna, it's Bologna, the same way you spell Bologna. So I thought the kids would think it was funny. And that's really the truth. So fast forward, I grew up in foster care. I grew up in the system. I knew nothing. So you fast forward, remember 6 years ago, DNA, the biggest discovery of the 21st century. So there I am, getting the DNA test. And what am I? Can you believe that? So you see how life works? Because you got to go, come on, of all the things. So in a way, what it is on certain levels, we know things, even though we don't know. So what was that affinity to do that? That was me, because that is what I am exactly. And there I found, it's 50% Italian DNA. There's no such thing as American DNA, You have the African DNA, and you have other DNA, but there's no DNA that says American. So Italian, what does that mean? He was from Italy? No. So what it turns out after the Agatha Christie discovery of 2 years, he was Italian American, first generation. His parents were immigrants. But here I am in Italy with the test tubes. I got all these cousin matches. I meet them. They don't speak English. Yeah, I got to rep up the Italian. So it was quite a journey. But in the end, I met my first cousin in New Jersey. That means they knew my father. And he was an Italian American guy. And how these people met, I will never know, because they're from two different worlds in Brooklyn. But it was quite a runaround of figuring the whole thing out. But still, that struck me, that I made this character that, it just struck me. Wow, that's kind of weird and interesting. So on some level, and I think psychiatrists will tell you this about children. Things that happened to you when you were little or you saw, things. Even though you don't know, you do know. And things that you see and hear, we absorb things. So on some level, as you could see, it turns out I'm biracial. I'm Black 7 days a week, but technically biracial. So on some level, I must have known, even though I knew nothing. Because nobody tells you anything in foster care. I'm not saying all foster parents, obviously. But in mine and the other kids, there was a foster brother that I lived with in the first home. You know what I mean? So he's not knowing anything. I don't know anything. This one don't know nothing. I never met any. We never talk about things. So it's just, unless you're with some really nice parents, or sometimes adopted, people who are adopted, they may be then told their family of origin. But basically, you don't know anything. And as an adult, me being so nosy, because I am nosy, I could be a detective, Agatha Christie. Well, think about it. That's what this is, being a writer. Writers are nosy people. But I could probably get a detective license, because nothing gets by me. And I'll dig and dig until it's endless. And that's what I did. It was painful. It wasn't all thing. Because get this, after I had the ancestry test, I called my foster brother, the one kid who was in the first home. It's my brother. E.T. I call him E.T. Edgar Torres. I said, listen, you can find out who your family was. Maybe you get cousins, photos. Here, I'll pay for the test. You know what his response was? No thanks. So that's how some people deal with it. And I backed off. Because that's how some people deal with it. And this poor kid, to me, he should know things. I mean, when you think of the reality that a child just ends up without their family, it's really one of the cruelest things that I think in the world that people do to each other. But we know in terms of the history of America, the legacy of slavery, this is the aftermath. You've got a lot of people suffering. As it turns out in the end, my mother came from a huge family. Why did they never take her? Why did I even know these people exist? You see what I mean? It's the aftermath of slavery, So, and by the way, Toto was my dog. You know that. Everyone knows that. So, of course, he's in the mix. I'm going to make a character out of him. So you pretty much get it. You see, Dorinda's the foster kid. You got the girl. You got the singers. Because, of course, secretly I wanted to be a singer, but I cannot sing. Oh, what a tragedy.
That's so surprising to me that you can't sing. I would think that, but maybe, you know, your singing dreams came out in the characters because they could sing. So that's what brings, you know, the musical aspect to it. But definitely I do see how Dorinda and like her character representing the foster system. And there was even we were just rewatching the movies when she like talks to Chanel about like, you have a mom, like I don't know my mom, and that sort of thing. It's a really emotional part of the movie. But yes.
I have a lot of gay friends, of course, because I'm so cheetah-licious. Since FIT, you know, I graduated from FIT. Miss Deborah, that's how I became Miss Deborah. So, but anyway, one of my gay friends, whenever he walks into a room, he repeats this thing that I obviously said one day in pain. He said, you know your mother? You actually met her? You know her name? You know your father? You met him? Then shut up! And that is how I am. It's true. It's like you can go on and on your problems, and then I go, so wait a second. So you actually met your mother? You lived with her? Or you met your father? You've seen your father? I don't want to hear another word.
I can see where that comes from, definitely. And like, yeah, even seeing that in the movie, like it was very emotional because it was like, be grateful that you know your mom and be grateful that you have a family and you know who they are, because that is something that's really important in helping your identity formation and like building your confidence. And that is something that leads into another great question that I have about the identity that you were building kind of with the Cheetah Girls and the Cheetah Girls ethos. Like it's a group of really diverse girls. This is just my interpretation of it, and you can let me know if it's on par or not. But one of the things that we all got, all the girls growing up in the Cheetah Girls world, with watching the movies, and I also had the books too. I had like the books where it was the multiple books in one book. So I had that set. And one of the things that I really got from there that helped inspire me with making Not Okay Club is the diversity of the different girls and having everyone like their different races, they have different backgrounds, but they're all going through this experience in the quote unquote jiggy jungle. And I was thinking of with Not Okay Club, other sort of creative girls who do fiber arts, Black women, Black non-binary people who do it. And knowing that we all come from different places and have different experiences. And even though we're all Black, we share the same identity. That comes out in different ways. We have different interests, we have different style, you know, we have different knowledge based on where we live and things like that. And one thing I really admired about the Cheetah Girls was that, especially Galleria as their kind of fearless leader, she's like, it doesn't matter what you got going on. Like, we're all here. We all have our growl power and we're sisters. Like, we are going to stick together. Not to like quote the lyrics of the song, but we're sisters and we stick together and we are a family. So like the attitude of chosen family, of sisterhood, of supporting each other and like uplifting each other, even if your spots are different type thing. That was something that really inspired me and was something that I think that the world needs a lot of right now, is that community, that diversity and inclusion, and that attitude of no matter what you got going on, like we're here for you. Because even seeing in the books and in the movies, like the girls are going through things, parental divorce type, you know, things, the stepdad, Luke, and all these different things where the girls do need support. And it's great when Toto fell in the hole, like all these different things where the girls can come support each other, be there for each other, and really kind of not just overlook differences, because it's very easy. People like to kind of gloss over the things that make them different and try to focus on what makes them the same. But something I really wanted to do with the club, because I think that's what makes us stronger, is embracing the differences and saying, yes, we have some similarities, but we also have our own style, our own flair, and we're not afraid to like stand up for that and stand up for what we believe in and, you know, do what needs to be done. Like a girl boss sort of attitude, a really like confident, really supportive thing. Cause that is similar to what you were saying about girl groups versus the solo artist era. I really didn't want for there, I was noticing a similar thing where there is a lot of like standalone people, but there's less so of like groups of people, communities of people all putting their minds together, putting their talents together, And I thought that even though we're not all singing, you know, this is a good way to have that same sort of community and that same sort of focus on expressing yourselves just through the art of crochet and through fashion, instead of music. Although I would love if some of us would come together and sing, because I love to sing. So even though we don't have a Knotty Grrlz group, I kind of pulled that from the Cheetah Girls ethos. And I wanted to hear from you, like, what else you really wanted to impress on people with the creation of these books and movies, because I didn't even get into what great representation it was for Black girls like me who did not see themselves in books or movies. But that's what I learned from it. That's what I think some of the people from the club have been talking about, like that similar vibe. But we'd love to hear straight from you, like, what is the Cheetah Girls ethos? What does a Cheetah Girl stand for? So we can have it sort of like what Knotty Grrlz stands for too.
Actually summed it up. I mean, the most important thing, obviously because of the foster care background, nothing is more important to me than family, because I didn't have it. So it's always the idea of creating a family of origin or a family in a group. To me, that's the whole thing. Nothing is more important. I'd give $20 million for, if it meant I couldn't be cute, I'd take family over anything else. So the friend thing, all of these things have the most value to me because I didn't have that. So people take it for granted. Oh yeah, she's my friend since first grade. I didn't have that, because you have to understand, being a foster kid means it's going to rip a thread through my entire childhood. That means I can't make friends. You get it? It's affected everything about me. So things that people take normally for granted. Oh yeah, she's my friend since fifth grade. I don't have that. I have the vacuum and the sadness and the pain. It was just really painful. But so that's what is imbibed in the Cheetah Girls. The idea of being in a group of girls, that to me is the ultimate. And it has nothing to do with singing. That's the funny part. And maybe that's why it did reverberate. It wasn't about singing. It was about the idea of being together. And if you come together, oh my God, you can't imagine what you can accomplish. That's what it was about. And then there's this thing, which we know in life, you know, your background can shape you a lot. But if you are given certain gifts, whatever it is, you can transcend the background. So that's what it really was about. So, you know, wishing on a star. I mean, so the singing thing, of course, is valuable, as we know, because we put so much value on singers. You know that, all over the world. I wish there would be more value on writers, quite frankly, because there's not. But so being a singer or being very beautiful, tall, skinny, certain things, or being a genius in mathematics, certain things are really going to propel you forward. But let's say you come from nothing, like Slumdog Millionaire, you know, this story. So you come from nothing, but if you have a certain skill, you can transcend and go somewhere else. And then if you do this with a group of people, you have your tribe, your people. So that's really what it was, because these are the most important things that I want. It's like anything. Has anyone ever heard me, oh my God, I'm so tall? No, I love being tall. Because you know why? I'm not short. So can you imagine if I was 5'1"? Oh, I wish I was tall. I'd buy 5-inch heels because I want to be tall and I could fall off the curb in the 5-inch heels, because that's what happens. So people always want what they don't have. And that's what I didn't have. So that was the most important thing to me. And it still is. I see family. Oh my God. Oh my God. It's the mother. Oh my God. Look, she has a mother going, you know, or whatever. You know, even Sex in the City. That's really what it was. Same thing. I mean, a friend. You know how hard it is to make friends, especially in this city. Everybody's out for themselves. They're so busy. Nobody has time for you. I hate that.
That is a really good point about New York, because that is one of the main reasons why I wanted to do this after moving to New York, was because everyone is so kind of splintered off, and like even more so when you think about people who don't live in New York. New York is such a concentrated place of people and we still can't connect. So then post-pandemic especially, it's like, how do we reach out to all these people who are across the country, across the world, who are looking for this same feeling and like what you're saying of wanting what they didn't have. I also started the club from the feeling of wanting friends, and from really, really needing that, because I also have my own like trauma from my life of not having any friends and different things, and definitely wanting to directly combat that by offering that space and creating that, because that is what's important to me too. So I definitely resonate with that, and I agree with the idea of family and friendship and connections and like love and all of that being one of the most important things. And I think that in the translation of the books to the movies and things, that sort of mentality stayed, or that message stayed through the work. But I do wonder with the process of the movies, because it took several years for them to make the movies. How involved were you? Because this is your vision and like your thing that you're trying to communicate. How involved were you in the process of turning the books to the movies? Like, I know you helped produce, but how much did you do?
So the writer is only involved to a certain degree. Remember, they don't care about the writer. That's the reality of Hollywood. So, you can forget it. So you can have as much pull, like I said, as you could possibly have, okay, with the casting, with the script, you're on set, but you're not an important person. So that's to answer your question. And what I told you in terms of being a writer, you'd better really have a thick skin and really know how to detach, because there's just so many people involved and they all have their opinion. That's what you're dealing with. Okay, to answer your question.
Do you think also being, because it was early 2000s, early to getting into mid 2000s, that wasn't a time where there was a whole lot of Black women in TV and in media and things in the first place. And do you think being Black, I'm sure to some extent, yes, but do you think that being a Black author and being a Black woman who is trying to make content and make media for like a Black and brown audience, did you get backlash for that? Or was there any sort of pushback with how you tried to frame that?
You're always on the lower rung as a Black writer. So that's reality. So I was dealing with that in the magazine world. That's just it. So, and 2000, so you're talking about the year 2000 to 2003. Okay, so we're talking 20 years ago. So things were terrible. And as far as I'm concerned, things are a little better now, but it's still the same hustle. Where just not their content is more important. That's all there is to it. They spend more money for it. They have more options, blah, 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 blah. So everything is a struggle. And that's the reality. But my point was, for me, what this was about was, you see, I blend sort of. I don't believe in this one color. First of all, you said it before. So to me, Black is not one monolithic thing. There are Black people from all over the world, first of all, so they have different cultural. They look different. They are different. They're mixed different. So it's a huge, huge, huge body of people. And I embody that. And now I know why, because I'm mixed in a way. I'm a certain type of Black person. Like I said, Black 7 days a week, but I'm a certain type. So is Obama. So are you. So is my girlfriend who's Trinidadian. So that was always my mindset without knowing it. So of course, the characters look like that. They're not going to be just one group. It's not going to be Chi-Town or whatever, where they all look alike. No, thank you. Or all the characters are, that's not me. So what I created was me, and was it hard? Yes. Is it hard now? Yes. It's always hard. And being a writer is a very difficult profession. So that's the reality. And they could care if you would just fall in a hole, quite frankly. They'd be very happy. And there's no mistake about that. Everybody knows that. When you're talking about Hollywood, please. If they could write it without you, that's what they would do. Ooh, AI, whatever that is, who knows? But the Cheetah Girls tour bus, I found it on eBay. That was my big thing. Oh, the Cheetah Girls tour bus. I wanted that. It was at Toys R Us. Do you think they sent me anything? No.
That was my next question. Yeah, with AI, that's exactly how they are going to try to write the story without you. And that is so unfortunate. But I was going to ask, in terms of you know, that Cheetah Girls, those movies came out like 20 years ago. What sort of follow-up has there been with you, like as the writer, in terms of any, like, I know when they released merch and things originally, did you get royalties from that? And then like anything from the future, what have they done for you since?
Talking about a brutal problem in Hollywood. You have touched on something that you need to research. It's called Hollywood accounting. The least they can pay you, they will. Paying the royalties, you can forget it. So it's the money you get up front, which is nothing, and then that 5% never comes. It doesn't matter how much it grows. And this has been going on for over 100 years in Hollywood, called Hollywood accounting. Everybody knows about it in Hollywood. And this is what writers struggle with. And when you're talking about book to film, just forget it. It's a nightmare, it's a whole thing. And no, so like I said, you know, it grows and grows and grows, and there's no check. But so what it is, you're supposed to be grateful because your books got made into movies, which is a big thing. But you're supposed to be grateful. And, you know, the books, that's a separate thing. There's no money in books. You know, books, that's not a money. The money is in what they're doing, and they're keeping it. So that's what you're up against, plain and simple. Oh, and talk about it, you're blacklisted because there's too many writers. And it's like, oh, you're trouble. So that's the end of that.
I would really think, I mean, with the writer strikes and all the things that have been happening in Hollywood recently, it makes complete sense. And we have been hearing about Hollywood accounting. A lot of Black women actors have been talking about them not being offered any money for like the movies that they're in and things like that. So I knew that even less so what happened for like the Black women writers who are not even the ones acting in these movies. But you would think, go ahead.
I have not an ounce of sympathy for actors. Not an ounce. Because they have a feeling that's unbelievable. Because they have to show up, they have to do the publicity, they need them. So if you can make it, that's an unbelievable payday. Writers have no opportunity of that. So don't talk to me about an actor, please. They could go fall in the lake somewhere. I mean, really? You think about Winston Groom wrote Forrest Gump, 10 years. Remember, writing always comes from the center. It has something to do with you. 10 years you work on a novel, you should be making zillions when they made that movie. So what do you get? 300,000? So that means that the agent, the lawyer, and the agent, the lawyer, and the IRS, that's half of it. So, and then you don't pay the back end. And let me see, Tom Hanks made $20 million up front. Are you seeing the big difference? This is not some minor disparity. This is like jumping off a volcano into another. This is the reality of what's going on in Hollywood. Now you know. And that's it. So that's what we live through. So what actor is worth $20 million up front? I'm sorry, nobody. But they're getting it. And they have to show up, and they got to do the publicity. They need them. And they need that name. So they're in a much better position. You can't compare an actor. You hit the payday with that, you've got unlimited. Look at Halle Berry. I mean, please. You know, there's no comparison. And I know the odds are long, but the odds are long in writing and acting. It is long. So, but if you make it in acting, it's much better. Actually, I should have been in that.
I think you would be a good actor. Like you definitely have the personality for it, and the fierceness. But I definitely understand what you're talking about. There is a big difference in the world of and the writing of the writing between writing and acting, the worlds of these two different things and how much you get paid for those. And it is unfortunate that it is such a disparity because without the writer, you wouldn't even have a movie to act in. So I do think that's very important that you're bringing that up as a point. I really think my last sort of question about your journey before we open up to other people's questions. I really do wonder, I mean, right now there is a little bit more of a push for content, media, shows, movies to be made specifically for Black people because the the general acknowledgement that we are a big watching and spending audience has come up. And also there is a big attitude shift in like non-Black people also wanting to watch things that are about Black people. And so really, if Disney was smart, they would probably tap back into you and be like, hey, Miss Gregory, what do you have anything else cooking? Like, you got anything else going on for us? I wonder from you if you would be interested. I know you did the Cheetah Girls, then you did the Catwalk series, but then you haven't put out anything in a while. I wonder if you would be interested in doing anything like a Cheetah Girls reboot or resurgence or something like that that we could push for, or anything.
Oh, well, you certainly can push for it, and they certainly, I mean, you write them, you do it, but you know that they're up to something. You've heard rumors, no? But, oh yeah, it's on the table. So you could push them, talk to them, but yeah, it's on the table. You haven't seen an interview with Raven or no one? I've seen it. People sent it to me.
Actually,
I definitely seen that.
I have to mute you temporarily just so we don't get the echo. Yes, I actually did see that interview with Raven and what's her name, Adrienne Bailon, a little while ago, last year maybe, and because they talked about Raven's home, and they were like, we would do a Cheetah Girls thing, but I wasn't sure. I'm like, have they actually said they're gonna do it, or are they gonna? Have they meant to, say anything to you? Has anybody said anything about more Cheetah Girls? Because I personally think we desperately need another Cheetah Girl. Like, tap me in. I'm like, I could be a Cheetah Girl, definitely, because I think that the people not only need that right now, but want it. I think even just with us bringing back Cheetah Girls and watching it and talking about it and stuff, a lot of people have been like, oh, we love Cheetah Girls. Cheetah Girls are so formative. Also, after I met you, I told like all my friends, I sent them the selfie we took. I was like, do you know who this is? And they all were like, oh my gosh, Cheetah Girls. Like, that is just such a pivotal, like, foundational part of not even just the Black girl growing up experience, but just for a lot of us at this age. So I don't know if you have anybody at Disney's contact or anybody's contact. I'm like, let me talk to them because I want to see it. I really do.
So you should write letters to them. But yes, they are definitely trying to cook up something. And that's an absolute 100%. And these things, you ever heard the term development hell? So what do you think that is? That's what this is. And that's what I went through before. Meaning you're in development, it could go on forever, and then it could die. Never get made. So they call it development hell. So it is in development right now. So we'll see what happens, because when you're dealing with the Wild West, you never know. But yes, it's on the table, 100%. Yeah.
Well, that is very good to know, because I'm somebody who I'm like, I could put the pressure on, because whenever I want to see something, I'm like, we got to make this happen. Like when I had the vision for the club, I'm like, I need to make this happen. So, because I know the benefits, like this is not just for me, this is for other people as well. And I think a new generation should be introduced to Cheetah Girls.
And you didn't ask me when I just told you about development hell. Do you know how it really got made in the first place? I'm talking about my book. Of course, they chase you. They want the book, right? It was Whitney Houston. If she wasn't attached as the executive producer, I don't think the thing would ever got made. She forced them. It went on for years. And she finally said, you promised me. So to appease her, it was to appease her. They said, we'll make a movie. It was supposed to be a TV series. Did you see what you go through 1,000 things with this whole thing. But that is the truth. So when they say development hell, they really mean it. And then, by the way, it starts as an option. So they're optioning your book rights to be made for movie or TV. So the option's a year. And then they can renew the option for a second year. You're talking about very little money. And then after that, if they can drop it, okay, do you see how this works? It's just endless nonsense that could go on forever. So I know someone, for example, who wrote, let's say, it was a Frankie Lyman. So it's optioned, it's made, then they drop it, and then 20 years later, oh yeah, okay, we want to make that. You see? And she wrote that Frankie Lyman story. That had to do with a problem, though, the rights of the music. But there's always pop. Or they decide, oh, those kind of movies aren't selling right now. Do you see what you're dealing with? 1,000 cooks in the kitchen.
That does make a lot of sense. I have heard of other shows that they table it, then they come back, and everybody's got their opinion of when it should be made, why it should be made, and what should be added, what shouldn't be in it. There's a million different, like you said, the cooks in the kitchen and revisions and changes before it can even go to production, like so many different things happening. And I've always had the dream, and now that I think about it, maybe it came from you, because I had the books, and then the Cheetah Girls like movie came out when I was really young. But I've always been like, I would love to have a book turned movie. I feel like I would be, because I'm also a writer too. And I was like, a book turned movie would be, a really good, or it was like a book turned TV show turned movie turned musical, like just the whole thing. I wonder if you ever saw that.
And why is it not a musical? Do you see what I mean? It deserves to be a musical. But have they done anything? No. I mean, I could see that on Broadway. I could see that touring 50,000 times. But, they own my dramatic rights, which is also the problem. There's no licensing. With a song, whoever owns the publishing, so you know how you'll see the McDonald's commercial, it's called licensing. The person who owns the publishing owns it. And so the music business is set up differently. Do you see the difference? So that means that even after the person dies, if that song is played and whatever, that family is going to get a check because it's licensing. That's the problem you're dealing with in Hollywood. They own it. So that means they get to do whatever they feel like. And you're sitting there. So that's the only deal you're getting. It's called the purchase of your dramatic rights after the option. Because remember, the option could just go and then they drop it, and then that gives you the right to shot it. And what you're talking about is the 1 in a million shot, book into movie. That's 1 in a million. That's going to Vegas and winning. And that's the reality for anyone, white, black, anyone. Yeah. And 40% of everything you see on TV or film comes from books. That's a big percentage. So that means there's a percentage that was written originally for the screen. Then there's the 40% came from books. That's big. And then a percentage comes from plays. And then a percentage comes from newspaper articles, magazine articles. This is the reality of what they're dealing with. Yeah. And that's how they are. There's the development, sitting around all day, seeing what they can, By the way, since you're into the writing, you must watch a movie called The Player. Find it. Because that showed you classic what a development person in Hollywood, the development people. And you see, it's a laugh. Robert Altman, it's a classic movie. And it's from a book, of course. Yeah. And everybody's in it. You name it, everybody's in it. Whoopi Goldberg, Julia Roberts, everybody's in it. But I meant, forget that. It's just a classic story of what goes on in those movie studios for writers. Yeah. Love them. Love that story. Classic.
Okay, yeah, I will definitely check that out. I'm like, I have a little tab right here. I'm like, The Player. We'll see where I can stream it. Because I would love to know. I definitely would. I think that I was going to ask something else, but actually when you were talking about it, I think I answered my own question. And I think also watching the movie, like you said, The Player, I'm like, that might give me a little bit more insight into the process. Because I love, thank you, Joe. Yeah. Also for people who are in this chat right here, if you have any questions for Miss Gregory, we'll be able to ask her your questions as well now before we wrap up. But yeah, just actually to segue into that, I do want to say thank you so much for everything you have shared already. I feel like, first of all, I feel like I could talk to you forever. And since I live here in New York, we should meet up another time and we could talk more. But I really do think that just being able to see an older Black woman and have someone to look up to and see like, oh, this is someone who also followed their creative passions and talents, and it led you to somewhere. I would love to see, like, that is something that I'm always encouraging with people in the club, is honing their craft, developing their skills and talents, whether it's crochet or otherwise, so that you can, like you said, no matter where you started, you can go somewhere way further than where you first did. And you can also have a group of people there with you. You can have a family that you build yourself, and loving connections. And it's really, really inspiring to see that you were able to make that happen for yourself in some way, and also to inspire the next gen, including me, to pass that same ideology along. So before we ask any other questions, I do want to know, how can we support you now? What is it that you are doing now? What are you working on? We know about your shop.
Shop is fabulous. And, you know, I graduated from FIT. That's my root. So, of course, I just always never stopped making things. And then I really amped it up after COVID, because shopping online tripled. So then there I stepped, you know, my Etsy shop is fabulous. Great. You know, so that's one thing. But, you know, I didn't tell you one important thing. Being a writer, I got fat. You know that I was a runway model. You know that. You didn't mention that. And I gained 300, you know, 300 pounds, out of breath, and I've lost 105 pounds. So I just wrote an article, and I had so much fun doing it. You know, I saw Corinne Corbett, BlackHealthMatters.com, but she used to be my boss. You know, remember, I had lots of editors, the cooks in the kitchen, in the magazine. Get it? There's a lot of them too. And you know, she saw me say, "Oh my God, you look great." She saw me at the Mega Everett National Black Writers Conference. You know, that college, they have one every year. And then she said, "Write, you know, part 1, part 2. I want to hear about this journey." So I just handed it in, and it was so much fun writing it. And so I just did that, and I realized, you know, maybe I should go back to writing some articles, because, you know, I did that like relentlessly. And then, you know, I stopped. But, you know, and what's next? You're right. What is next? I've had an idea for something for years. But now I find I've lost 105 pounds, because writing is difficult. The whole thing is stress. It's just stress from beginning to end, quite frankly. And look at me, I'm so much more peaceful. I lost 105 pounds. The diabetes went away. The high blood pressure went away. The cholesterol went away. You know, it's a big deal. And I know what comes with writing. It's stress. So I have to be very careful. But, you know, I make things. I enjoy that. I have the Etsy. I do some events. So, of course, cheetahrama.etsy.com. You know, that's my thing. But yes, writing the article was fun. I'll send you a link when it's published, you know, because it was so much fun writing that. And you know, we'll see, what am I going to create next, because I'm not going to force myself, because I know what I'm dealing with now that I know. But I may decide I do have to write. There's a story that I think about forever, and I just suppress it. Because it's like, oh, I don't want to deal with all that. It's just such a headache. I'll keep the stories to myself. But, you know, so that's to answer your question. Yeah.
That is so awesome. First of all, congratulations on the weight loss, health improvement journey. I know how that is. I also have lost a substantial amount of weight a couple of years ago that I had gained from stress and depression, and then I ended up losing it again. And so that was a whole journey, but my health is better too. So I'm really glad to hear that. And I also can relate very, very much to suppressing the story that you have inside of you for years, but then you're like, I know that writing comes with stress, but I got to get this story out. So I feel like that's kind of the path that I'm also headed down. So I support you in that. We definitely will read the article when it comes out. I want to encourage you to write again, because I want to read it again. So we can encourage each other on that path. And that's really great. I'm hoping that your future is bright with anything that you choose to do, even if you decide to not start writing and you just want to focus on Cheetah. That is totally fine, because I'm gonna get my bling. So you'll be good nonetheless. But I do want to say thank you so much for all of the gems that you have dropped today. People who are in this chat, do you have any questions for her that you would like to ask in the chat, or like questions in general? You could unmute yourself also to ask directly. That's totally fine. But if not, we will wrap this up, and we'll be posting this on our YouTube so that you can watch it and revisit it later. Get some of these gems from the stories that she's been sharing. And also, Miss Gregory, I will hit you up later about staying connected, RE, more Cheetah Girl stuff, because I would love to, I'm like the Knotty Grrlz, the Cheetah Girls, Knotty Grrlz vibe is right here. Yes, thank you for adding the link. This is the Cheetah-rama. Yeah, y'all definitely check out her jewelry, and she's got other little trinkets that are really nice. You had some like cigarette cases, little holding cases that had pictures on them. I saw your website. I was on the website, girl. So definitely check that out, y'all. And if you have any other like questions related to being a Black woman in media or anything like that, let us know, and we can try to provide you with some resources. Oh, that'll be our last thing. Is there any final parting tips you have, Miss Gregory, for any like Black women like myself who are interested in media of any sort, in writing careers, TV, anything like that? Okay. So more specifically, I'm asking about like writing, novelist type, fiction or nonfiction, just creative writing. And then also if you're interested in like TV or film.
So TV or film is a nightmare. And I had never had no interest to be writing for TV or film. That doesn't interest me. You know, books being made into movies, that's a different thing. I wanted to be an author. You know, I was a magazine writer. But TV or film, good luck. So what that means is you have to write a script that gets made. You can only get in the Writers Guild, which I am in, but you can only get in the Writers Guild if something that you made was actually paid for TV or film. You get it? It's not just pitching something. It means that a film, a studio, or a TV thing actually paid for the script. Then you're forced to join the union. Get it? It's not even, oh, you make, they come after you. And that's what happened. But that, just so you know, the Writers Guild that you heard, because you mentioned before about the strikes, so what? It strikes all the time because it's, you know, a lot of problems. But so to get into the, so you have to be in the guild, and to get in, for example, you try to get on a show as an assistant, like a writer's assistant, if that's what you really are into. Or the real long shot out of the long shot of all long shots is you write a script and then you try to pitch it and get it sold, or it'll get you in the door. And that's the long shot of long shot, and that's the way you do that. And then there's, you want to be an author, you write a book. And then, of course, no, it's very hard to get a book deal, because unless you're famous or they have, you were kidnapped into slavery in Arabia, you know, why are they buying your book? You know, it's hard to sell books. So that you can self-publish. That's open an enormous window. So you do that. But remember, writing is about love, because the money is funny. So you do it because you have to. And then you're talking about that. But know that. Know what you're dealing with. This is not some, but there's more money in TV writing. And, you know, if you want to get into that, cattle on the shows and the this and that, and it's very stressful, but you get kicked off and you're fired and there's so much. But, you know, there's more money in that than, let's say, in other things. But let's say you really love books like I do, and you write a book because you want to, but you know the money. So the most important thing about this whole writing thing is to make sure you are very well funded with another career, like the way I know how to make things. I've always had that. So my point is, because you could keep dreaming and you'll end up in bankruptcy, or your rent not paid. So the bottom line with me, since I'm 18, because I've been on my own since I'm 18, you age out of the system at 18, back then, is that my bills must always be paid. So that's the most important thing you must remember through all of your journeys, becoming a singer, becoming a painter, opening an Etsy shop, whatever it is. you must be covered, because that dreaming will have you homeless in terms of not being living in reality. So always fund your dreams, because anything could go wrong. And you're working on things. So that's how I am, and that's how I've always been. Yeah. But I always had that thing where I made things. So thank God, still keeps it going.
And that's a great point. I think that that's something that with the girls in the club who sell things, like their crochet business, having that on the side while you're going for other things, or like maybe you're working full-time or part-time and then your crochet business is your dream, and then that's your something like that will help keep you stable and sane so that you can pursue your dreams without worrying about what you're going to eat. And I definitely feel that living in New York, that is the classic story of the artist trying to make it. But I think that's great advice to make sure you've got your safety net, you're covered, you're stable. Yes.
One other thing. I think pursuing an acting career is incredible. If that's something that you really want to do, you go for it. Because like I said, they have a lot of options. And I love that. And I think acting is a wonderful career to pursue, by the way. And you know what? I told you my dream was to be a singer, and I can sing. So that's her mother, by the way, in the book. If you notice, Galleria says, my mother wanted to be a singer, but she has the wardrobe and it's me, but she can't sing. So that's why she pushes the daughter. But the idea of being a singer, and it never was about being famous. It was about being in a club in Amsterdam and getting $100 to pay. That to me is the most amazing thing. To be a singer, you could sing for people. It's not about being a star, because that's Oh, by the way, another movie you must all watch, 20 Feet from Stardom. It's a documentary. It won the Academy Award. Watch that. 20 Feet from Stardom. You can Google it. Sometimes it's on Netflix, HBO, wherever, Amazon Prime. Well worth it. So, but to be a singer, oh my God, that's such a gift. It doesn't mean you're going to be famous, because it's the same odds you're up against. But you play in a club. You play for your mother at her birthday. I mean, what an incredible thing. So you have a mother? Okay, that's it. I'm not talking anymore.
That is so funny. Also, I love this. Y'all, this is the official Cheetah Girls symbol. This is the growl power Cheetah-licious. I'm about to start doing this in my general life now, truly. But don't worry, Miss Gregory, I'm going to send you an email and I will sing for you. I'll come sing for you. And I'll sing the Cheetah Girls songs for you. It'll be great. I'll sing whatever you want. But thank you so much for your time today. I will talk to you very soon. Thank you all for joining us here and on Discord, and we will be revisiting this later. I hope you all have a great evening, and we will talk to you soon. I love you very much. Bye. Have a good one.